Jorvik is huge. Did you know that the current map is less than a quarter of the entire island? And actually, we already have a lot of information about these places from previous games. So let's talk about that! Hey guys, it's Eleanor! Throughout the Jorvik games, we have visited a ton of places, and a lot of them have yet to arrive in SSO. I wrote down a list of all the unreleased areas and locations we visited in previous games, and it's a pretty long list. There are a few things we should note though. First of all, Star Stable Online is growing more and more independent, so there's no guarantee that these areas and locations will make a return to the game. If they do return, they may look very different or maybe renamed something else. We have areas such as Dino Valley and Mistfall that weren't a thing in the original games. And then we have places such as Hillcrest, which became a whole different thing when implemented into SSO. Still, I do believe that more important areas and locations such as Jorvik High and Pine Hill will return with a lot of similarities. Another thing to note is that not all of these areas are very interesting at the moment. It will take many years for all of these areas to be released, so we're obviously gonna be more interested in areas that could come within few years. Currently, this would be Devil's Gap as well as areas seen in Star Stable The Winter Riders. Locations are a bit harder to pinpoint because they could be implemented into bigger areas or as part of Jorvik City, so it's really hard to tell when, where or if they're going to be released. But okay, let's start with the most obvious one, Devil's Gap. We've talked a lot about Devil's Gap on this channel, so I'm gonna be quick. We first saw Devil's Gap in Starshine Legacy Episode 4, The Riddle of Dark Core, where it was purely used for a race. It then returned in Star Stable The Autumn Riders, where it didn't really have a function other than being a steep passageway. What's kind of fun about this is that we know that Devil's Gap will return to SSO at some point, and we know that it's gonna resemble the original Devil's Gap because we've seen it in the game. Although it's not accessible to us yet and it doesn't serve a purpose in the game, it's still there. It's called Devil's Gap and it's a steep passageway. Question is just when we're gonna get it. Okay, so let's get to the good stuff, starting with Cape Point. It is famously known for being part of what we now know as Mystic Valley. It makes up about half of Mystic Valley and consists of Cape Point Village, Cape Point Riding House and Cape Point Stables. In these places we know of two NPCs, Henrietta Rain, who owns the Cape Point Stables, and Jack, who runs the Cape Point Village shop. The other half of Mystic Valley is mostly just mountains and doesn't really have a name in the original games, hence me naming it Coulter's Village in a previous video. However, there is this place called Meander that is located pretty much on the north or northeast border of Mystic Valley. It consists of Meander Village, Meander Stables and Meander Jumping Paddock. And through the Winter Riders game, we get to know Eric Lau, who owns the Meander Stables, and Antoine? How do I pronounce that? According to Google Translate, it's called Antoine. Antoine, who runs the Meander Village shop. There is also this place called Meadow Valley in the Winter Riders, which seems to be leading into Mystic Valley, but it just follows the river and there's nothing to see, it's just a path. What is possible though is that this is the path behind the Icing Gate, but I don't have a lot of evidence to back that up, so that's just a what if. And then we have Pine Hill. It consists of Pine Hill Village, Pine Hill Stables, Pine Hill Mansion and Pine Hill Indoor Riding Ring. This place is pretty much run by Dark Core, it seems. Mr. Sands lives in the Pine Hill Mansion and you can also meet Sabine and a lot of goons in this area. Although there are regular people living the village, the stables and shops and everything is run by goons. Of course, Pine Hill Mansion also appears in Starshine Legacy Episode 2, The Mystery of Pine Hill Mansion. Now, this is why I consider Pine Hill to be a particularly important area in the future. Not only is this where Mr. Sands lives, but the whole area just screams dark magic. I feel like there's so much evil going on there that we don't know about, and one day we're gonna figure out what's the deal up there. As for NPCs, we obviously have Mr. Sands living there. We have a goon at the Indoor Riding Ring called Mr. Peebles. Yes, that's actually his name. And then there's the goon at Pine Hill Stables, who apparently is called Mr. Gilligan. There are also smaller locations such as Anvil Bay and Mercury Lake, which I'm not sure if is part of Meander. Mr. K. Trout is actually the only person to be found at Mercury Lake, and because we already have him in Cape West Fishing Village, I've got the feeling that Mercury Lake will not be returning. As for Anvil Bay, we have one NPC there called Henry Stevenson, who is in the Anvil Bay Riding House. It doesn't seem all that important of a place, to be honest. The riding house is all that's there, so I imagine that when the time comes, it's just gonna become a ferry dock or something of that sort. I mean, it seems like a good spot to have a ferry dock, and I don't think we're gonna get that many riding arenas. We can also see a dam up in the eastern mountains of this game, which probably is the same dam as seen in Starshine Legacy Episode 2. Now, let's compare this to the official map of southwestern Jorvik that we got through the Soul Riders book trilogy. We can see Cape Point, Meander, and Pine Hill marked on the map, so this should mean that these areas are planned to arrive in the future. They all seem to be intertwined into this Winter Valley, which is fitting considering that they all were part of the Winter Riders game. Like I said though, there will probably be a lot of changes, so what we see in the Winter Riders is just a hint of what we might be getting in these areas. Also, the dam is here marked as Bastion Dam, so that's probably gonna be the official name of that. And speaking of which, there's also the Dark Core headquarters, which we technically already have in SSO, but not as part of the open world. It's placed right there next to Cape Point, so I'm curious to see how they're gonna pull that off in the future. One thing I noticed though is how Mystic Valley for some reason is not marked on the map. It almost looks like that's not the name of the area, but I kind of find that hard to believe too, because it has been referred to as Mystic Valley for a long time, and one thing I haven't told you guys yet, there are these codes in the game files referring to Mystic Valley, so surely it has to be a place in the game. Besides, there's also no location name behind the Icing Gate, and Starshine Ranch is not on the map either. But for some reason Ashland is, even though they've said that it's just a placeholder for something else. Maybe this is just a way for them to keep the information secret so that the updates remain a surprise to us. That's just a thought. That's pretty much all the information I have about these places. We've never seen the Crate of Yore or Ashland in any of the previous games, so those places still remain a mystery. It's always interesting to explore things like this, and it never fails to get me excited for future updates, even though I know it's probably gonna look very different. Okay, but anyway guys, I'm gonna stop the video here, so I'll see you around. Bye!